who find your residence in Boulder will find what she has to say very interesting today. She has been serving veterans for 20 years. She was raised in a military family. Her father was an F-4 Phantom fighter pilot. Kudos. Colette enjoys time outdoors, spending time with her horse and traveling. We also have Justin Brandenburg. Justin is a Marine Corps veteran. Has been serving veterans at the Vet Center for 15 years. He's a pilot, enjoys bourbon. Oh, we need to talk. And volunteers with Team Rubicon. You've probably heard of Team Rubicon, which is a disaster response organization. We have Jeremy Walsh here, a U.S. Army Iraq War veteran. He has been working with veterans for 7 years. He is the Veterans Outreach Coordinator for the Denver Vet Center. And then a little bit later, we will have two other individuals sitting back there. We have Tim Hutchinson. Many of you know Tim back there. Tim is a Navy veteran, having served aboard the aircraft carrier USS Midway, attached to the U.S. Navy 7th Fleet from July of 1984 to April 1988. In his current role, though, he is the Broomfield County Veteran Service Officer, so I'm sure many of you recognize him. And then with Tim today, sitting right next to him over there, is Janelle Mendelson. She is a public affairs outreach specialist with the VA in the Eastern Colorado Healthcare. And she also has, for almost 31 years? 31 years?
3 years.
3 years, sorry. Her husband, and I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble reading here, Joel is a Vietnam era veteran who served in the Navy. So these folks are going to kind of rotate through here. But the big thing we want to do today, we want to keep this very conversational. So please, 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 if you have questions, if you have anything you'd like to talk about with these folks today, that is what they are here for. With that, I'll hand it over to Colette. Colette, there you go.
It's my walkout song. Good morning. As Don said, I'm Colette, and really happy to be here with you guys today. I have a huge love and respect for our veterans. I feel like growing up in the military, I was made for the job that I have as the director and as one of the therapists. And so thank you for having us here. I'm going to have Justin start us out talking about just a little bit about the history of the Vet Center, how we got started, how we're a little bit different than just the VA medical centers. And so that might be of interest to you because I think that's pretty confusing for a lot of people, the distinguishing those two. And then after Justin, I'm going to have Jeremy talk about our eligibility criteria, and I will talk about what kinds of programs and services we offer.
And really enjoy it. So I'm just going to talk about the Vet Center and where we came from, kind of how we came about. We started back in the late 70s. A group of Vietnam veterans in Southern California were not happy with the service. It's on. It's showing green.
Try that.
Is this one better? Oh, there we go. Yeah, see?
World of difference.
Yep. So the Vet Center started back in the late 70s in Southern California from a group of Vietnam veterans that weren't happy with the service that they were receiving or not receiving from the VA. So they found an empty storefront in a community and created the Vietnam Veterans Outreach Center. That was just a place for Vietnam veterans to go and hang out and drink coffee, talk about the things they wanted to talk about. Some of them had pool tables and different things like that, and it was just kind of a peer support type of organization. Max Cleland, some of you have heard of Max Cleland. He caught wind of this, and he decided that this needed to be something that the government funded and made available to veterans everywhere. So in 1981, the Vet Center became the Vet Center, and the focus was on Vietnam veterans who had served in Vietnam, providing them support and early on counseling, peer support counseling early on, but it was a benefit that was through the VA that was made available for all of those Vietnam veterans. As time went on and more conflicts were starting to happen, they realized we need to open this up to everybody. So it was opened up to all conflicts, any conflict that had happened, they opened that up. So we are now the Vet Center. We have approximately 300 vet centers across the country, and we have 80 mobile vet centers. Some of you may have seen our mobile vet centers. It's our big trucks that are branded. It's got the big fancy satellite dish on there, but we can use those to go to rural communities to help provide services out in rural communities, and then also do outreach at community events and places like that to help get the word out about the Vet Center. So the Vet Center program, like I said, it's been around officially since '81. We've been going strong ever since. We're growing, and we're continuing to provide the support, to veterans that deployed to a combat zone or area of hostility. Colette will talk a little bit more about the programming, and Jeremy's going to talk to you about the eligibility. Do I have any questions about the beginnings of us and kind of that side of it?
You said there were 300 in the country. How many are in Colorado?
We've got 6 in Colorado.
Whoa.
Yeah, we've got ourselves in Boulder, Fort Collins, Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and Grand Junction. And then there's one up in Cheyenne as well, so almost 7.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, I'll pass it to Jeremy.
All right, so like Jason said, they opened up our eligibility to more conflicts than just Vietnam. Now, as long as you've served in an area of hostility, you'd be eligible for our services. That also includes victims of military sexual trauma. We also include things like the Coast Guard, if you've done like drug interdiction, things like that. Drone pilots, even though maybe you've never left the country, you were doing something that was, traumatic. And we also have services for like active duty soldiers if they're experiencing troubles with, their civilian lives because of what they're doing in their military service. We can see active duty soldiers. The nice thing about the vet centers is that it's very confidential. Well, we don't even share our records with the VA unless you sign a request of information. Even though we are the VA cannot access our records. Only the vet center can access your records. And so that's real nice if you're a police officer and you're in the Guard, or you got out and you're a pilot and you just want to come for our services and you don't need everybody to know what's going on in that sense. So, if you have any questions about eligibility, go ahead.
So, a lot of Navy people were not in combat or during time of combat. For instance, the Iranian hostage crisis, North Arabian Sea, Mediterranean, during the attacks on Libya. Are they also eligible?
They would be eligible, so that's why we say like in hostile areas. So if your ship was in these areas and there was some sort of conflict going on and you guys were supporting it in some way, even though you didn't see actual combat, you're still eligible for our services.
Also
Yeah.
includes Chapter 31 and Chapter 33 benefits too. If you're receiving those, you're eligible for the Vet Center.
Yeah. That's a newer thing I forgot to mention. If you're going to school, while you're in school, you're eligible for our services as well, even if you don't meet any of our other eligibility requirements. So, like the Boulder Vet Center is right next to CU. I think they probably see some of their students there. So,
Yeah.
Any other questions about eligibility?
I know for the Denver Vet Center, it used to be, because I work in PCMHI in
Mhm.
Eddie too. I would use y'all as far as like if my veterans were eligible and they needed further on more than our 6 sessions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because Building A is scheduling out, like BHIP is scheduling out until February, March now.
Yeah.
I know when I talked with Mark back in April, y'all are fully staffed and everything, and within a week you can get an intake.
Yeah, so that's another thing. When you go to the VA for mental health services, oftentimes you can't get your first appointment for a couple months because there's a lot of people that want that service. And then they also do like time limited, and she'll be able to speak more on this, but these programs that are like 12 or 16 weeks, and then you graduate from that program and then you're done. The Vet Center, as Mike Fisher, our head honcho says, you can be a client for life. So you're never going to end the service unless you want to. So we also, if you call us, we're going to get you in as soon as possible. There's no long waits. I don't know about Boulder anymore, but typically they'll get you in there within a week or two, and same with Denver as well. Yeah. Oh, yeah. As far as MST, that's military sexual trauma, if you were a victim of that, it doesn't matter if you never deployed or never went to an area of hostility, or even if it happened in basic training, you're still eligible for our services as well, because we're a readjustment counseling center, so we focus on traumatic things that happen in the military.
And family members are eligible too if someone passed away.
Yeah, we also have bereavement services. If you lose a loved one while they're in the service, the family members can come to us for services. Yeah.
So also on that, what if it's a veteran that's been, obviously discharged, but never went for your guys' services, would that spouse still be eligible for that bereavement?
Typically not. It usually has to be like service related.
Right.
Yeah.
They had to have passed on active duty. So whether that was a suicide or a training accident or during deployment, that's our eligibility. We can't see all bereavement. That would overwhelm our system. We wouldn't be able to see our vets.
Gotcha.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah.
One of the things that they talked about at one of our previous VA things is we have to, if you're a veteran, you have to actually register with the VA to get some kind of secret handshake or something. Otherwise, you're excluded. Is that still accurate?
So in terms of VA, and Janelle can talk a little bit more specific about the VA, but yes, you have to register with the VA. That way they know who you are, where you're at, all of the things that go along with that. So in order to be a part of the VA, yeah, you have to go in and register. And Janelle can talk about that process a little bit more. It's slightly different for us. You would just basically come in or call us, and we start that process. So it's very easy. We're going to gather just basic information, verify your identity, check your DD-214, and then you're part of us. But like Jeremy said, we can see the records at VHA at the hospital. We can see those records, but they cannot see our records. So people like that, especially on the mental health side, like Jeremy said, police officers, pilots, people with clearance type jobs, things like that. VA employees, things like that, they can come to
Well,
us.
that was one of the challenges I saw, is that guys that really needed help and wanted help, if they went for help, they got blackballed.
Yeah.
And so you basically created a situation where they chose the irrational approach instead of the rational approach. And that seems to be contrary to common sense.
So the reason that the Vet Center keeps its records separate goes back to how it was started and why it was started. Vietnam veterans felt that they were not getting the services that they needed from the VA, and they wanted a place that they could go and get that, and they didn't want the VA to know about that. So that was the big push when we were created, that we were going to keep our stuff separate from the VA, even though we were going to become part of the Veterans Health
and
and
you, but you don't share any information with
That's right, unless you come in and sign a release of information saying, I want you to release my records over to them for whatever reason.
The only time I can see if one of my veterans is, or know if one of my veterans is seeing the vet center is if they come. I can't see.
Yeah.
Even in jail, to be like the health exchange and stuff.
Yeah,
I always thought that was wrong, so I'm glad they're at least trying to address it.
We're trying, yeah.
yeah. So just to touch a little bit on the eligibility piece, like your question, we have a whole list of times and places of service that opens up eligibility for us. The list is huge. It gets down into certain months of certain years, and it's crazy. So we're looking for certain things, some sort of combat, or not combat, but campaign medal, Vietnam Service Campaign Medal, Operation Enduring Freedom Campaign Medal, something like that. If it's not a big campaign that has its own medal, there's certain awards that are in there. Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal is a big one. We get a lot of Navy and a lot of Air Force people on an Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal because they're doing things that are in support of those campaigns, but they're not technically part of that campaign. So a lot of times you'll get an Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal. We'll see like Air Force and Army Expeditionary Medals every once in a while, but there's things that we look at in order to find that eligibility. We're looking for the yes always and not the no. So there's things that we can look at that will help us determine if you're eligible or not. And I would say 99% of the time we find that. Very, very rarely do we have a veteran that comes to us that is just absolutely not eligible. It doesn't happen very often, especially with our widened eligibility criteria that we have now. So yeah, there are things that we can find and use for that yes for the eligibility piece. Oh yeah, you do not have to be registered with the VA to come to the Vet Center. We don't care. And as a matter of fact, for the most part, we don't care about discharge type either. As long as you don't have a dishonorable discharge, we'll be able to see you if you meet the other eligibility criteria. So bad conduct discharges, things like that, where the VA isn't going to see you. If you're eligible for our services and want our services, we'll be able to see you. Yep.
So you mentioned you can, at the veteran's request, release records to the VA. Can you selectively release records? And I might give you an example. For instance, if a veteran is applying to VA for a disability, and sometimes there may be something that the Vet Center has that supports that, but you don't want the rest of it to be released to VA. So it would be selectively release items.
So if you file a disability claim, Tim Hutchinson can talk about this, but from our seat, when you file a disability claim and you tell Tim Hutchinson that you're being seen at the Boulder, Denver Vet Center, and that you've been being seen there from these dates to these dates, when he files that claim, and if it has something to do with us, he's going to put that you were seen at the Boulder or Denver Vet Center from these dates to these dates. When that packet goes to VBA, VBA is going to send a request to any of those federal agencies that you received care from, and they're going to request your records. They're going to request, it's usually all of your records. So in that case, those records are going to go, because you're going to sign a release of information when you start that claim, those records are going to go to VBA. Now, if it's something for continuity of care, you're getting care over at the VA for something and you think that they would benefit from seeing something from us, when you fill out that release of information, you're going to put very specific what you want released, and then we are only going to release what it says on that release. So yes, you can get dialed down unless it's a claim, then it's usually going to be everything. There's a few criteria, but Tim will talk about that. But yes, so we can kind of control that information that goes back and forth.
But during the claim, the only person who's looking at that is the claims department. It's not going to the rest of the VA.
Yep.
So I wanted to talk just a little bit about what it is that we offer at the Vet Center. And one thing is, we were just talking about a bunch of eligibility criteria. If you have any question of whether you're eligible or whether a veteran is eligible, please just reach out. We will try and help you navigate that. And if we're not the right place, we want to try and help you get to where you can get help, like at PCMHI or BHIP. So that's the first thing. Please always reach out. The other thing is, part of our mission is to also provide resources and referrals. And so sometimes you call and it's just, hey, I don't know how to talk to somebody about my GI Bill. Who do I need to talk to about that? Is it you? Or I want to talk to someone about Service Connection or my BAH, whatever those things are, right? And so we are happy to also provide that information. The veteran community is pretty small. We know a lot of the other people that we work with. Tim Hutchinson has been such a rock star. I've been able to work with him for a long time now. And Janelle also, we've really appreciated partnering with these people. And we work back and forth to make sure that veterans are getting the care that they need. So if it's not us, hey, call Janelle, call Tim, or, call CU Boulder. We'll get you in touch. So dialing it back down to what it is that we do at the vet centers, we provide individual counseling, we provide group therapy, we provide couple therapy or family therapy. All of those need to be in service of the veteran. It is under the veteran's benefit, and so that's an important thing to recognize. We can't just see family members for anything, right? It has to be in support of what that veteran needs. Does that kind of make sense, or is that confusing? Okay. Part of the individual therapy, we do a lot of trauma work. That is our area of expertise and specialty. That doesn't mean that we don't see things like substance abuse, or somebody has a co-occurring bipolar disorder or depression, anxiety, panic disorder, those kind of things. So we also work with those kind of things and try and help you get back to best quality of life. We want you, whatever your age, to be able to have the best quality of life you can right up until the very end. And so if you feel like we are much better with trauma therapy now than we were when Vietnam veterans came home. We know about PTSD because of our Vietnam veterans. That is how PTSD became so known and widespread and studied. And so on the shoulders of our Vietnam vets, super thankful for all of you, we now have better treatments. And so our brothers and sisters, our Iraq, Afghanistan vets, our Persian Gulf vets, you guys are able to get services from us because of our Vietnam vets. So thank you to all of you. Our groups. So we have campaign specific. So we have Vietnam groups. Right now we have 5 Vietnam groups at the Boulder Vet Center. I'm not sure. I think there's like 3 at Denver.
Yeah, we have
3. So we still have a good number of Vietnam vets that are coming in. We definitely want to keep providing those services. We also have had an Iraq, Afghanistan specific group. We've had a women's group. We've had a military sexual trauma group. We have a writing group because sometimes people are trying to write through their trauma, or they want to understand a different part of them, or they're trying to write their biography or memoir, right? Excuse me. We also have had an art therapy group, and currently, this is my favorite group because I have a horse that's out there, but we have an equine therapy group. And usually we get to do that one about 3 times a year for 6 weeks at a time, and different veterans. We usually have about 12 veterans go out at a time and spend time with horses and other animals because that can be therapeutic. For a lot of our vets, it's easier to connect with animals than other people, right? From so many of my vets, it's like my dog is totally non-judgmental. I can be myself. It's unconditional love. It's not like that with people. So, we try and just add in all these different kinds of things to support. We also have a yoga group. We have a meditation group. So we're looking at other alternative kinds of things to help support our veterans as well in learning skills, because it's never too late, right? Or it's never too soon. And so if you have people that are younger Iraq, Afghanistan vets or returning from Africa, that's what we're seeing a lot of right now with as far as the newer vets. Please encourage them to come and talk to us, because the sooner you can intervene, the more likely it is you can get back to better quality of life or have more peace in your life, because that's one of the things I hear from a lot of our vets, that I just want to have peace. I don't want my last breath to be focused on PTSD or the shame or the guilt or the, trauma of what I've seen. I had one World War II vet. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I started out at the West Los Angeles VA, and I started out in the medical center working in surgery and ICU, and so I would see people come in who had cancer and who were facing end of life. And what I would see with a lot of our vets who had not done their therapy or had done their work is that those memories were coming back. And now at the end of life, I'm having to try and make peace with that or come to terms with it. And one of the veterans I met with, he was going in for surgery. He had cancer, wasn't sure if he was really going to make it out of that surgery. And I went in to talk to him just as a social worker. That's what I did, is go around and meet with all the veteran patients that were going. And I remember he just started breaking down and telling me I was the first person he had ever told that he had been part of liberating a concentration camp. And when he went in, he talked about the horrors that he saw, and one of his biggest feelings of guilt was that when they went in as U.S. troops, they were feeding the Holocaust, survivors. And those survivors died because they couldn't tolerate the food. And so this heartfelt wanting to provide this care, ended up being this guilt. So I want you to know, we're either veterans, we have family members that are veterans, our hearts are in this. This isn't a paycheck for us. Yes, we get paid to do this, but our hearts are in it. We're here for you guys. We want you guys to be able to talk about those things that are unspeakable, that you've never been able to share with anybody before, so that you're not carrying that by yourself. You don't have to. Shared burden is half burden. And we're happy to share that with you. And we've heard all kinds of things. We're happy to go to those dark places with you so that you can have relief. So that's us. Is there anything else that?
You mentioned you're all licensed.
Oh, yeah. So at the beginning of when the vet centers first started, it was a peer-to-peer support group with Vietnam vets to Vietnam vets. And now we are all licensed professionals. So you are getting top tier care. We do evidence-based practices. That probably means something to you. We do different, I don't know if you guys have heard about different therapies, but we're trained in EMDR, CPT, DBT, different trauma therapies. That's all you need to know. They're just different kinds of trauma therapies. You don't necessarily need to know all the acronyms, but government, military, we love our acronyms. So yeah, we want to provide the service. Our hearts are here, so please give us a call. And if you have any questions, Jeremy is representing Denver Vet Center today. Justin and I are from the Boulder Vet Center, but Jeremy used to be ours. We're still claiming him, even though he left us. But he got a promotion. It's really great because these guys are out in the community trying to reach out to people to let them know about services, whether it's with the vet center, whether it's at the VA hospital, whether it's vet center service connection benefits, or with Janelle doing the outreach. So please give us a call. Don't be hesitant. We're happy to answer questions.
Y'all still have psychiatry services too?
That is a great question. We used to. We no longer do in Boulder. Our psychiatrist passed away, and Denver didn't feel like they could provide us a follow-up care. Denver does still have a psychiatrist that goes to their vet center. So in Boulder, we just refer people to their closest VA hospital to get the medication and try and coordinate with them.
Those are the only notes that are shared with VHA, because we need to know contraindications.
Correct. Yep. And so since the psychiatrist is actually a VA staff member, they're not a vet center employee, those records are part of your VA medical record. So any psychiatry or psychotropic medications that you're having prescribed, that is part of your medical record. Thank you for, you're a rock star. Thank you for prompting. I appreciate
Being a veteran is also
Yeah.
being a provider, so.
Yes, and I can hear your heart, isn't it too? So like wanting to make sure vets get what they need.
I just wanted to comment on part of your referral service. I think the Veterans Museum sort of prides itself on being a safe place for veterans to come and share.
Love that.
So I'm hoping that you share those referrals. And we're especially looking for the Gulf War veterans.
Yeah.
Because we just have so few.
Early 90s to now, the last 20 years that we were Iraq, Afghanistan, yeah. And we are trying to, do field trips and get our veterans involved in other organizations. What I'm noticing with some of our younger vets is they're still raising families, they're still working, and so it's a little bit harder, but we're getting them in. So yeah, we definitely are telling them, again, that you're a resource, right? Any resources we know, we try to pass on, so thank you. Yes?
Do you know the daily or the monthly rate of suicide of veterans? Because I'm just wondering what we're doing to make a dent in that.
Yeah, so, I mean, VA has very specific, I love that question. One veteran who suicides is too many. And we've all experienced it. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have experienced suicide among veterans. It's a really high rate. We're higher than the rest of the country. You know, veterans are overrepresented in suicides. And so there are programs at the VA. We also have suicide prevention coordinators that vet centers we coordinate with. We share, at the VA, there are what we call high-risk flags, so that we're just aware that, hey, this veteran is saying that they're having more suicidal thoughts. Every time they come in, make sure you're asking them. So we're trying to do that. Here's the other thing. Veterans need community. And that is the thing, in my opinion, that is going to help prevent suicides, is if they have a sense of community, if they have a sense of belonging. That is part of this, right? And so this is why I like to refer people out to other places. We like to have groups. At our vet center, we do barbecues. We have had seminars on aging processes. We've done pancake breakfasts. We've done pizza parties. We've done Vietnam commemorative celebrations. So we are very much about this being community and not just mental health. We get a little bit more freedom than the VA hospitals to like do some of that.
There is some evidence that some of these psychiatric drugs that are being prescribed for PTSD are also increasing suicide.
Some of them can.
We have to take a look at that too and say, okay.
Yeah.
And chaplains, are they participating in this? Because unless you have a strong belief in our Creator, you are all alone.
And sometimes what we do too is when we meet with a veteran, we always do an initial risk assessment. And part of that is, yes, what risk do you have for suicide? Like, what are the thoughts? Have you had attempts? That kind of stuff. We are definitely diving into that. We will have those deep conversations with you. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens. The other part of that, though, that we're looking for is, what are your protective factors? Well, I have kids. I have pets. I have a belief in a higher power. I have, I feel like I have a lot to do in this life. We're looking for those strengths, and we're also looking for, how do veterans cope? And if they're lacking in any of those areas, how do we shore those up? So there's not one simple answer, but I love that you brought that question up, and we are very invested, as I'm sure you guys are, in trying to help keep our veterans going, getting through those hard, dark times so that they can stay here with us. Other questions, thoughts?
I don't think we have anything here at the museum that kind of refers to you guys.
Yeah.
So maybe if you have something.
We have brought a stack of brochures that have our phone number, and like I said, please just feel free to ask, to reach out, pass this on to anybody. And like I said, we try and get out in the community and do this kind of stuff often so that we are making ourselves known, so that, yeah.
So even if you know of something that's happening in the community that you think might benefit from us coming out and speaking at them, please give us a call and say, hey, there's this event that I'm going to or I'm participating in. Can you guys go and set up a table there? We would love to, absolutely.
And I appreciate the fact that you guys come out here because of the fact that we get a face-to-face interaction. And I think that's more beneficial than a lot of us. We see a phone number or we see a brochure or something like that to contact Veteran Services, but having an actual name and a face we can connect to and somebody we can talk to today. So thank you again for coming out. Thank all of you. And yeah, I think that we had at least one individual who said they wanted to talk about something, Bob, but it's totally up to you. Up to you.
Bob, do you want the mic? Will you hand that to him?
Oh, okay.
And thank you, Bob, for being okay.
I owe the help I'm getting to all of you. You had a symposium last year for Vietnam veterans.
Yeah, we can get you a camera.
Oh, Vietnam veterans, okay?
It's going on YouTube.
Okay.
You'll be internationally known.
So you had a symposium on Vietnam veterans. That was incredible, absolutely incredible. The only criticism I would have of it is you had too many people talking too short of times, okay? However, I met Colette there, and my PTSD has come back, okay? So she's helping me through this now. And if it had not been for my meeting her, you only get 6 sessions at the VA anymore. And I was treated in 2010 through 2012, and some things like that for a good period of time. And the only reason I wasn't going back for sessions and so on is that my counselor was retiring, and we decided I was pretty much okay. Well, it's come back now. And I got my 6 sessions at the VA, and that was it. Fortunately, I'd contacted Colette before that was over with. And I have a lot of work to do, okay? I just want to tell you that it's amazing what they're doing for me, okay?
Yeah, it's good to hear from somebody who's been through that.
Yeah.
We really appreciate hearing that.
You guys are near and dear to my heart, as you can tell. I'm easily choked up in talking about our veterans and, you know, the love that I have for you guys. Any other, yes?
2 things I want to ask. You mentioned a writers group and people wanting to write their memoirs. I like to do historical biographies. These guys have let me do presentations here on occasion.
Wow.
I'm not a veteran, but is there a way to volunteer to assist with helping people curate and assemble their stories?
Yeah, reach out. We would love to talk and coordinate.
Who would I talk to?
Me?
Okay.
And then if you wanted to talk to Denver, you could call Jeremy and he could put you in touch with their director there.
Yeah, 2 multiple vet centers.
Yes.
Other thing I'm curious about is I hang out at the refuge and churches and car shows. I meet a lot of veterans. They don't want anything to do with the system.
Yep.
Do you have an outreach, or do people have to come to you?
We have both, right?
The
So
homeless, I'm thinking of specifically.
so we do a stand down every year. That is a consistent thing. And then also we try and get them connected with the homeless program at the VA because they can provide a lot more services than we do. What we focus on is more like, I guess, higher tier. If somebody doesn't have their basic needs met, we're not going to dive into PTSD stuff, right? Because that's just opening up another like box of stuff that they have to deal with. It's too much. So we, again, going back to what's the appropriate place for people to get their needs met in the best possible way. So if you have people that you run into, please feel free to have them come get in touch with us. Or like Jeremy said, if you know about events, car shows, or, you know, different things, please let us know. You know, we are always looking for events to attend. We don't always know what they are. And so you guys are out in different places. Please keep us posted. Any other things? I feel like I've been talking a long time. Okay.
Okay, Colette, do you guys want to?
I just have one.
Go ahead.
Okay, now, this is an odd one, okay? We know we've got youth who want to become veterans, okay? And I don't know if there's anything we can do, I don't know, to encourage, because when you're a vet, you're a leader. You're a leader for America. And so I'm just wondering if there's something for the youth.
Yeah. So actually, again, if this is something you guys are interested in, we have a lot of veterans who we've gone to colleges, and I personally have gone to high schools and talked to youth who are interested in, being in the military. Hold on 2 seconds. And then I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
We do outreach to the high schools in the local area.
Yeah.
And quite often, in Veterans Day, sometimes Memorial Day in the spring, they'll have a Veterans Day program at the school. And then we certainly will go there and just talk to them and more or less tell our story. Why we ended up joining, how it impacted us, whether or not it helped us in later life, and so on. But, because so few families now know a veteran, it's a lot tougher. When we grew up, family members, uncles, cousins, teachers, so many of them were veterans. But I have noticed lately in high school, some of the younger teachers have served, which is good. And they're probably the best ones because they, have the connections directly with the students and are even much better. They're closer to their age even than we are.
And then another thing local for the high school age kids, a lot of the high schools have junior ROTC. So that's one. And then right here in Broomfield, the Broomfield Marine Corps League, they sponsor and help with the young Marines in the area. So Young Marines is another organization for kiddos to join and kind of get some of that experience.
Do they need volunteers, like I'll say lay volunteers to help them do any of it?
Probably. I would reach out to those folks, yeah.
Thanks.
And we've also, had several young high school volunteers who volunteer
Yes.
with us, have gone ahead and joined the Navy. And even more recently, one just graduated from West Point and stuff. So if they have an interest, here's a great way to meet veterans of all the different services.
Yeah, we've had veterans from our vet center who have volunteered to go talk to students about their experiences like you're talking about, whether that's Veterans Day or, we've been invited multiple times to CU, so not necessarily for Veterans Day, but just to talk about, what it's like to have been a combat vet or to deal with being, the wife and of a veteran, a wife of a active duty, but also be a veteran themselves, right? And so I think some of it is interesting too, like for women for so long, it's, if you showed up at the counter with a male, the male was the veteran. They didn't recognize the woman. And we've gotten a lot better about that, recognizing that our women serve. So.
Well, thank you, Colette. I think what
Yeah,
I'm gonna
thank
do
you.
is I'm going to swap you guys out with
Perfect.
Giselle and Tim. If you'd like to come on up here and share with us.
Okay, short break. If you
Short
need
break,
another,
yeah.
Pick up a coffee, we still have 2 donuts. Just quick.
Absolutely.
Bathroom,
Are you guys gonna stick
please
around?
come back.
Yeah, I think so. Depends on how long Tim talks, though.
As little as possible.
Tim is retiring violent, right?
Yeah.
Of the VA.
I know I put that in.
We know Janelle, she'll talk a lot.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, just looking out.
Yeah, looking out.
Looking at,
Looking out.
just saying.
Just saying. Just for a friend.
Why not just take, well, since it's just you two.
Yep.
Go ahead.
She's
clip
gonna
that.
go first, so,
Yeah.
do they both work?
Oh, yeah.
They were using one, I thought,
Well,
switching
they
it
were
back.
just, it was easier for them to switch it. If you want, just use one and pass it back and forth.
Does that
Okay,
work?
let me see.
Ten-four.
with Janelle and Tim, and they can fill you in on a lot of the information too. If you have additional other questions specifically for matters to deal with the VA, I'm sure Tim can cover that as well. So, I'll go ahead and start you guys up. We'll make sure that these mics are working. Yours is on green, right?
Nope.
Now it is.
Now it is, okay, and we're good to go. So go ahead.
Okay. Oh, wow. So my name is Janelle Mendelson, and I work at the VA at Rocky Mountain Regional in Aurora. I live in Lakewood and live like 8 minutes from the Golden Clinic, and loved working there, but in January, of course, things kind of changed, so I got pulled back over to Aurora and drive over there every day. My husband does use the Golden Clinic, so cannot give enough kudos for at least this area, which probably most of you use that clinic, is my assumption, rather than driving out to Aurora unless you just need to. So as a public affairs outreach coordinator, as Justin, Jeremy, and Colette talked about earlier, my job is to go to events like this and speak a little bit about the VA, and most especially about the Veteran Health Administration side, which is what I am enrolled with or work with mainly. Tim obviously will talk about benefits, but I do a lot of outreach also with the VBA, the Veteran Benefit Administration side, and also National Cemetery. Have to give those guys a little bit of the discussion quick because we do have Fort Logan right in our backyard, and then also Pikes Peak. So both of those are things that I think everyone kind of needs to think about. If you haven't, for National Cemetery, please, you can go online to va.gov and get what they call a pre-need form. So it's something to always think about and get that rolling and work with your funeral director. Again, Fort Logan and Pikes Peak. The other thing with outreach, I guess with enrollment, which is, I think, Tim, what you wanted me to talk about today, correct? A little bit more. So one of the places I would always suggest, if you're not enrolled in healthcare, you might have gotten over on the VBA side and are working for a disability rating or have a disability rating, is if you're not enrolled in healthcare, please do that. At 0%, you can do it. At 100%, you can enroll for healthcare. Go to va.gov, and there's a welcome kit that you can download at home. It's about 46 pages, and it gives a lot of information on anything related to VA that you can imagine. At least it's a starting point. I would say that as far as enrollment, it's basically at the Rocky Mountain Regional Center, so you do have to go to Aurora. It's 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, and it's at the Business Center, which is Building G, and you can walk in there. You don't need an appointment, and they will see you and get you enrolled into healthcare. They'll check your eligibility. Now, in getting to all of that, as Tim is aware of, and others here, there is a lot of different eligibility requirements. So I'm not going to go into all of that because it could get crazy here all day, but basically go and check into it and see. I can't stress that enough on that. The other thing that we have also, just FYI, at the medical center, some of you are aware, is the VA Fisher House. The Fisher House is a 16-room building that's there. If you live from that location, 50-mile radius out, you would be eligible to stay there for free. So if you have family member or somebody that's there, you can have up to 4 people in a room. And this gives people that are having something done at the medical center availability to have their family stay there. So I did want to give just a slight mention about that. The other thing is, as far as eligibility, going back to that, you can, again, go in. You do need your DD 214 and go to the Rocky Mountain Regional. You can also go online, va.gov. They have enrollment right there on that. You can apply by phone. I don't know how many people do that, but there is a toll-free number. I can give that to anyone that would like it afterwards, that you can apply that way. They also accept mail yet. This actually goes to Wisconsin. I don't know how many people apply by mail, but it is available. Those are your 4 choices. So my Healthy Vet is something that, as we all know, kind of changed this last January, I believe, for signing in ID. It's kind of a pain in the rear. So I wanted to give Larry's number because I like to give out Larry's name for this. So he is the Healthy Vet Coordinator, Larry Wilson. And I have his number and his email. Again, glad to give that to anyone. Do you want me to give that? Are you writing that down? 720-723-6279. And it's Larry.Wilson, WILSON 11 at va.gov. Larry is the person to talk to. So if you're having any kind of problems with My Healthy Vet, please give him a call. We do a teletown hall 10 times a year on the 3rd Wednesday. Usually we do it from 5 to 6 p.m. That anyone can listen in on this. What I do is go out and grab about 10,000 veterans' names, and we send out by a robocall so that people can get this information, and they're able then to do the teletown hall. I'll make sure, Dawn, that I get you the 855 number for that, because anyone can listen in on those. They might just not be eligible to maybe get on live, but they can listen in at any time, and we appreciate that. The Vet Center will be, I believe Justin is going to be doing that at our November teletown hall, which I think is November 19th, is the 3rd Wednesday. For this 3rd Wednesday that we're doing, which is October, coming up this next week already, we're going to do suicide prevention. So we do have the suicide prevention awareness team that's coming on. I know earlier the lady in the audience mentioned something about suicide. I always want to plug, as a connection with outreach, that if you have an event and also for you need a speaker, we have somebody that can do suicide prevention. They have a awesome awareness, what I would call 40-minute maybe presentation on what they do for that. It's just fascinating, and gives a lot of different stats, demographics, and goes over in detail about the suicide awareness team at the VA. So that is something definitely to think about. And even having them come speak on a morning like this, they'd be glad to give that presentation on that. I also work with the Colorado Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. Can't say enough good things about those guys. I know Tim is kind of part of that. Do a lot with the veteran service officers. They have become friends. If there's anything they're doing in the community, that's where Tim hooked up with me and said, hey, come out and speak. Right now, the only thing that I'm not really doing with outreach is anything that would be related to congressional at this point. So maybe once we're back in track with everything with the federal government, we'll be back on with that. The Vet Center guys were here, so I don't have to plug for them, but I do it all the time because I have to say, once I was made aware of the Vet Center, these guys are so awesome. I can't say enough about the people that work there and working with them. It has just been a great experience. So I plug them all the time. And the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about was our Veteran Experience Program. This is patient advocacy. If you are having a problem and you're not getting any other results, obviously the Patient Advocacy Program is another one that you need to reach out to. Here in Denver, that number is 720-723-6766. I'll be glad to, again, get that out to anybody. I work in Building A at the VA in Aurora, 2nd floor, and that's where the patient advocates also are. They're also on the main level. They work there with the VBA specialists each week and take appointments. These people, again, are outstanding. Every time I have an issue, usually when I'm at an outreach event, I usually run into somebody that's not happy with the VA. So they're the first people that I'm going to contact and say, hey, what do I need to do to help this person? And also the enrollment specialists are another key component to helping and getting people going. Recently, I was at a place here in Broomfield, that had, it was assisted living, maybe even independent living. They probably went into assisted living and did a little talk there, same as we're doing this today. And there was a gentleman who needed a little bit more help. Tim had been out there earlier, so Tim, I reached out to him first, reached out to my enrollment people, and hopefully we've got him going back to the VA. He needs a little bit extra. So those are the ones that always kind of make me happy when I can reach out and do some connection with those people. I guess that's kind of what I do. Go to independent living centers. I'll go to museums, vet centers, memorials, active duty, military, Guard, Reserve, anything that I can to talk about benefits, give a broad overview of the VA, just put it in front of people, because a lot of time a lot of people haven't thought about their VA benefits. My husband was 65 and retired, and that's when he turned around and thought he should look into it. Joel served 67 to 71 on an aircraft carrier and was in the Mediterranean. It was the Saratoga, and it's decommissioned at this point. But he really went back home and got used his GI Bill and became a mechanical engineer and was at Lockheed for 38 years. So yeah, so for him it was, that was his experience. But he didn't look into the VA until he was 65 years of age, and has since been doing a lot more with things. You mentioned stuff that comes back, sir. Things do come back. Things that Joel did not realize that he had experienced during that time period with, I think Tim's going to get more into the PACT Act and toxic exposure. Different things that have happened that you maybe don't recognize during your time in the service. So anyway, it has been an 11-year journey with him, and working through some of the things that he saw at that point. So I'm going to turn this over. I guess questions for me first. Anything?
You talked about military cemeteries.
Yes.
And a military funeral. What is required for that besides the mortuary having a copy of the DD 214?
You have to turn in, sir, what they call a pre-need form first. So again, go to va.gov, and under the NCA, or National Cemetery Association, they have that form. Fill that out, and that also is sent in. You can, I believe, mail or fax it, but you need to send that in so that, and I believe it also goes to someplace in Wisconsin or Michigan, so that they have that available. But then you also need to let your own funeral director know that you've done this, and that they have a copy along with it, so that you can get your plans made to go then to, if it's Fort Logan or Pikes Peak, on that. Yes?
This is Nova. How many people can you bury in the same plot below or above the veterans? It's the same thing.
Well, with basically two. It would be, a spouse and the veteran on that. There are some exceptions to that, but that gets a little bit more detailed, but mainly it's two.
Okay. And are you at the, you told us where you're at. Is that the phone number to reach you?
So to reach me, you can call me at 720-485-7726. That's my personal or my work cell phone. Yes, and again, if I can come out and speak at any other events or do something or coordinate with the vet center to do something, would be glad to do that. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Tim.
All right. Yes.
I had a question to start off with.
Sure.
I was wondering, Janelle had mentioned just briefly, with the government shutdown right now, maybe you could start letting us know what services, at least right now, are still open. VAs, which ones maybe pause or furlough.
So from my understanding, as far as the VA outreach, certain outreaches are affected. I think cemetery, they were supposed to be here today, they're not here, so I think they're affected. Essential services, all that is still going, so it's not a super huge disruption, but there is gonna be some disruption in, some of the processing of, like the pre-need eligibility, so they're gonna sit in a queue until this is over, and then they'll start working those again. But as far as the disability claims, those are being worked. So it's not a huge disruption as far as a lot of the services that we would deal with normally. The hospital's still going, the outpatient clinic's still going, so there might be certain aspects of that are affected that they consider are non-essential, right? So, but for the most part, it's business as usual.
That's good for people to know, like that.
For sure.
So Don, just one thing, so VBA, the veterans, over here at Van Gordon in Lakewood is shut down.
Yeah, the public contact team, the building itself is shut down. And I think that'll be for the duration, but as far as processing of claims and everything, they're still working to get that done. They're just, public contact isn't, so there's no admittance there.
Are the BSOs in that also?
Yeah, I would, because the building is shut down, so there, if the building's shut down because you have, obviously Colorado Division of Veterans Affairs, the state VSOs are there, the American Legion. So I imagine you could still get a hold of them by phone, or I'm not sure if how they're conducting their business while this is closed, right? Because they're in that building, so.
You serve the whole of Colorado or just a certain area?
So I'm in eastern Colorado, so that basically means, I would say probably about Broomfield, south to the border, to the New Mexico border, and then pretty much kind of, if you look at like where Teller County is, Buena Vista, that's kind of the line that I'm in for eastern Colorado, out to Kansas. We do have 5 counties in Kansas that are considered eastern Colorado. I have never spoken to any of those VSOs. I think they all go to further into Kansas. So, yeah.
Well, like St. Francis folks and stuff like that, Colby,
Right.
Goodland, they go to
Goodland.
Burlington.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go
Yeah.
to Burlington.
And the northern counties of Colorado go to Cheyenne.
Cheyenne, yeah.
Loveland,
So we're southern Wyoming.
We're still eastern Colorado.
So my name's Tim Hutchinson. I'm the Broomfield County VSO. So what do I do? So what do I do? I actually help veterans with, filing claims, processing claims, enrollment into different programs. If there's something you can do electronically with the VA, that's going to be the best way to apply, right? So when people call me and ask about education benefits or VRNE, I say, well, if you can apply online, that's going to be the best option. If not, come in, we can do a paper application and get it submitted that way. But anything you could do with the VA electronically is going to be the quickest option, but when it comes to the bulk of what I do is obviously disability benefits. And so I can help with the, compiling of the evidence and giving the best advice, right? Because the claim itself, it's up to a veteran really to provide the evidence to the VA to show that something is related to service. When it comes to certain things that are considered presumptive, which means that the condition is presumed to have been caused by your service, then really what you need is a diagnosed disability, and when they do the search, they can see that you served in an area, and we'll use Agent Orange as an example and say diabetes, right? If you served in Thailand or Vietnam or Guam during certain dates, American Samoa now, right, or Blue Water Navy, you know, you get that presumption for diabetes or any of the other number of things that are related to Agent Orange. But anything that is not considered a presumptive, a lot of times people are like, well, I can't really file for this. And it's like, well, you can. It's a direct service connection. It's going to take a little work for you to show that this is connected to service, right? I can point people in the direction and give them all the information, but at the end of the day, they have to do the work and kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together and point the VA in the direction they want to point them to show how this is connected to service. And so when it comes to, like say the PACT Act gave new presumptive conditions. So the PACT Act itself means different things to different veterans, right? Depending on where and when you served. The PACT Act, if you served, you know, post-Gulf War and on, it's going to mean something different than someone that served in Vietnam. And if you served prior to Vietnam, it may not mean anything, right? Because there's not a lot of, or any presumptives other than certain types of areas with ionizing radiation and different things like that. But the PACT Act means different things, and you can get different presumptions with that. But a direct service connection, you're not relying on that. So it's going to depend on, you know, if you had an event or injury in service, and if you have a current diagnosed disability that may be related to that, right? So I kind of give the information to the veteran on what's going to be needed to get a service connection, and you know, they have to kind of put everything together, and sometimes it's a statement, sometimes it's going to be medical evidence that they were seen for something many years ago that shows that there was a continuing issue, right? So I kind of guide people on the best way to file your claim. What I also do a lot of is people come to me with claims that have been denied, and we look at the reasons for that denial, and if it's been within a year, we might be able to challenge it somehow. Maybe it's in through a higher level review, which a higher level review within 1 year is an error of fact or law. So you can't submit new evidence, but if there's an error of fact or law, then we can contest that denial based on that, and have an argument or a discussion with a decision review officer who's been around a little while, and make our claim that, hey, we think you guys got it wrong and here's why. And if they agree and say, okay, we believe there's a duty to assist error, they can make the appropriate correction, appropriate action. A lot of times it's sending it out for another exam or another opinion, medical opinion. Does that always work? No. But you get a new set of eyes to look at everything, right? So, and then you still aren't giving up your rights to take that to an appeal, right? So a Board of Veterans appeals in front of a veteran law judge. And the unique thing about Colorado is we have a memorandum of understanding or of agreement with the National Veteran Legal Services Program, NVLSP. So even if you go through, you file an appeal, Colorado Division of Veterans Affairs has an appeals specialist that takes over at that point. They represent you in the hearing with the judge. If it comes back denied at that point, then NVLSP will automatically look at it, and if they think that it should go to the Court of Veterans Appeals, then they will take that to the court. So you're represented all the way through the Court of Veterans Appeals once you start working with a VSO in Colorado. Not all states have that. Once you're done with the appeal, then you have to go get your own lawyer, right, usually. So they do an automatic review through NVLSP, and we've had successful outcomes through that Court of Veterans Appeals to get veterans service connected. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's wonderful information you're sharing with us, because I imagine a lot of veterans, when they file a claim, it's denied.
Well, that's, yeah, and that is and that is something that happens, right? So, you know, there was the old, and you got it, understand, I have a love-hate relationship with the VA, right? I don't work for the VA. So sometimes I'm battling, against them, trying to get something service connect for a veteran. When I look, because of the way things have changed, it's a task-based system. It used to be where one regional office took that claim all the way through the process. Now it's task-based, so it pops into someone's work queue, and once they do that task, it pops out and goes into someone else's work queue. So they don't have a complete picture of the whole claim anymore. Whereas I do, because I've reviewed all the evidence and I'm putting it in, so I see things that maybe they're not seeing, right? So we might have to battle about it, right? We might have to do a higher level review, or there's other options, additional evidence, supplemental claims. It's just a matter of having that mindset. Well, hey, I'm not satisfied with this. I'm not going to, going to quit. I want to keep going with this. A lot of times people are like, I don't care anymore. I'm done, right? And I encourage them to keep going. And if they want to, that's fine. If they don't, then it's their choice, right? It's their claim ultimately. And having ownership of their own claim is what's needed. So if someone's, takes ownership and puts in the work and you get the best chance of trying to get a successful outcome, a favorable opinion. That's all really you can ask for, right? And then push it all the way through. And sometimes if the evidence isn't there, it's not there, right? So it is an evidence-based system. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And so trying to put that pieces of the puzzle together and push it through to try and get service connection, because the VA, how they do things is when you file a claim and they feel that there's enough evidence for an exam, they'll request an exam. Those contract examiners, don't work for the VA, they're contract, right? Doctors or nurse practitioners, right? And so what they will do, that does three things, accomplishes three things. Verifies you have the disability that you're claiming, right? Then it gauges the severity of point-in-time snapshot so they can cross-reference with the rating criteria if you're successful, so they know what your rating percentage is. But then they make an opinion based on all the evidence. Is it at least as likely as not that this condition is related to service? So the evidentiary criteria for a VA claim is only 50-50, right? And sometimes these decisions come back and they're denying it for something that would make it more than 50-50, right? So more likely than not. So they're putting a higher evidentiary bar on a claim. So sometimes that's a way to argue that it's not a good opinion, right? So there's a lot of ways to argue that, right? Because once that opinion comes back, and if I read through it and they looked at all the evidence that you provided, they came up with a rationale that's good, they have their own references, then my hands are kind of tied, right? Because even if you were to take that all the way to appeal because you don't agree with it, a BVA judge can't even discount a medical opinion. They don't have the education and they can't discount it. But you can go out and get your own, and your own opinion is enough to, as long as it's a good opinion and they give equal weight to that, then that's up at the appeal stage where you receive what's called benefit of the doubt or reasonable doubt. And they are bound by law to resolve reasonable doubt in favor of the veteran. In most cases, right? It's not necessarily 100%. There's been some changes to that due to some recent court rulings, but for the most part, when it comes to that, reasonable doubt is resolved in favor of the veteran. So I will stress that a lot of times to veterans. Sometimes you have to get your own opinion. I had to do that, and other people have to do that as well if you want to be successful, because if the evidence is there but you get a negative opinion, especially when it comes to hearing claims a lot of times. The VA, what they look at, it's kind of outdated, the study that they use, because other studies have come out since then that show that even if you're exposed to hazardous noise environments for a short period of time and your ears fully recover, so when you get that separation physical, your ears seem fine. Your entry level physical, your ears seem fine. Later on, you could have more of an early onset age-related hearing loss at an earlier age and more pronounced or profound, right? So you you can take those newer studies to another audiologist and they could say, because again, we're only looking at least as likely as not. We're not looking for medical certainty, because doctors, when you ask for opinions and it's medical certainty, that freaks them out. You know, all they think is, okay, I'm going to get sued, right? So, but when you're not looking for medical certainty, you're looking for at least as likely as not, 50-50, then they're like, oh yeah, because they like to say it's probable, highly probable. Well, how about just at least as likely as not, 50-50? Yeah, okay, then they'll write that opinion. Now you have the ammunition you need to take it to an appeal, BVA judge, and for the judge to say, okay, now I have, you know, the evidence is, you know, approximately balanced, positive and negative, I can grant reasonable doubt. If you go all the way to appeal without your medical opinion, a lot of times that BVA judge will say, hey, can you get your own opinion? I'll leave the record open for 90 days. They're telling you how to help them. Help me help you, as Jerry Maguire would say, right? That's what I always tell veterans, help me help you, right? And so that's what they really need is to be able to grant benefit of the doubt. They can't just grant it once they have. What they can do is look at it and maybe they could poke a hole in that and say, hey, I'm going to send it back to remand and back for another opinion. And now you're still, you know, you're still in the hands of another examiner looking at the same evidence, right? So sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But you know, there's a lot of moving parts to the whole disability system. My job as a VSO is to give you the best information possible, right? I'm not there to say, no, you know, you can't file a claim, you're not eligible to file a claim, or this isn't going to fly. That's not my job. My job is to say, hey, well, you know, let's put it in and see what happens. You know, gather this. This is what's going to give you the best chance, and let's put it in. And, you know, I don't make the determination. The VA does. Same thing with eligibility for health care. I don't make that decision. The VA does. So if you go somewhere and someone's discouraged you, the only time I really tell someone they might want to wait is when we're talking pension, which is a need-based benefit. And if they're over the net worth limit, they're over the net worth limit. And so that's going to delay things, or you might want to wait till you spend down a little and then we can refile that pension, you know, claim. That's the only time I give that advice, but I always tell them, unless you want to file, we can still file. But chances are it'll get denied and we'll have to wait till the money comes down. Or they can assess a penalty period, which is going to delay your benefits for a certain amount of months, but still you want to get fairly close to that net worth limit. You don't want to be way over the top of it. So that's the only time I tell veterans, right, that maybe we should, you know, wait a little bit. But I know that a lot of times I tell veterans, hey, here's the things that we're going to need, a statement, this, maybe some evidence, and sometimes I never hear from them again because there's a little bit of work that they need to do on it, and there's no magic wand. Even if they say, I'm going to go to a lawyer, well, you can go to a lawyer. Lawyer's still going to want evidence, right? He's still going to send you, you know, see if you can get your own opinion. He's going to tell you the same things that I'm telling you. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, but it really just depends. Every case is so unique that we could look at something that was previously denied, and if we get a chance to maybe refile it with some new evidence, we can do that. There's been some changes to the law, some surviving spouses of Vietnam veterans that now would be eligible for DIC, which is the dependency and indemnity compensation, that because of those changes, and we could file for that, and if they're granted it, and then if they did do a couple things right, then we might be able to go back all the way back to when that veteran passed as far as that DIC benefit. And I've gotten spouses help them get major retroactive payments, you know, in excess of close to $200,000. So that's, you know, it's helpful. So that's essentially how I can help. I do always try to refer people back to their counties. And there's a couple reasons for that. If you're not in Broomfield, I refer you back to your county. Number one, you know, that county VSO and that county, they bring a lot of money, federal money, into that county, right? And if that county has a huge number of veterans and they're not meeting that demand, well, maybe it's time for that county to think about adding another VSO to that county. Because all the federal money, millions of dollars of federal funds comes in through these disability claims. And so it's worth it for them to add another VSO. And the other reason too is, the State Department has changed a little, Department of Veterans Affairs. They don't really do claims anymore. They're trying to oversee things. And when I'm gonna see someone from other counties, it's the outliers. It's usually older veterans that can't make it maybe to Golden from Jefferson County, or they don't want to go all the way to, to wherever their VSO is located in Weld County. I might be a little closer. So I try to reserve that overflow for those older veterans that don't have to travel as far. If it's a younger veteran, then, try your VSO first. If you don't get a good response, or you go there and you don't feel it's a good fit, or they never call you back, right? But try them first, right? Because that's important. If not, then call me and I'll say, hey, try your county. And when they say, I tried, they haven't called me, it's been a month, right? Or if they say, I went there and he said there was nothing he could do, and I'm like, all right, we'll come in and we'll look at it. But I try and refer everybody to their county first. The other reason is because each county has specific benefits for their county, right? So you might be eligible for something else there, and I'm not familiar with, right? I'm not familiar with all the counties and all the benefits they have. I am more familiar with what Broomfield can provide and where those resources are. So I don't want to miss out referring you to a resource because you came here first. But I will see veterans from other counties, but I do refer them back originally, so that they can at least try to see if their county is going to be able to help them. But other than that, yeah. Colette?
Question. You
Yeah.
may or may not know this, but with Boulder
Mm-hmm.
not having anybody certified right now, what do you recommend for people
Do they not have someone who's?
to do? They got certified.
Oh, did they? So they're accredited and ready to go? Do they have one or two right now? Okay. So they have two. They hired a new one then, and okay. Okay. Yeah, if they're not getting help, I mean, I would always say try there first, like I said, and if they're not getting anywhere, they could call me. But I know that they're trying to make it in Colorado that no matter where a veteran's from, right, that you can help them, that you're supposed to help them as a county VSO. Which is fine in theory, but that means that the state themselves probably should be filling in some gaps and helping when it's needed. And that's another issue I have. I feel that they need to step up because they're the accreditation that we hold, right? So if we call them and ask them for help and they don't really assist with it, then that's frustrating for everybody, right? It all boils down to service delivery for the veteran. It's about the veteran. I don't want to make it political. I don't want to make it, about borders, county borders or anything. I want to make sure the veterans being seen, right, and being able to file their claims and getting the services that they have coming, But I want them to try their own county first, and if they have issues with that, then by all means, call me, because I have veterans from far down, El Paso County that I work with. They're all over the place.
Tim, how many veterans are in Broomfield County? Do you know?
So Broomfield's a smaller county, so we have approximately 4,000, I believe.
4,000?
Yeah. But that's just veterans that we know, right? So that are in some type of VA, right, service. So there's other veterans that may have never applied for any VA services that aren't in that count. So it's more than that. And then when you factor in spouses and dependents, that might be eligible for benefits, it goes from there. Other counties like Adams County, it's 35,000. Jefferson County's 35,000, right? El Paso County's 100,000, right? But they have 11 VSOs in El Paso County, right? And so the latest questionnaire that the Colorado Division of Affairs put out is to change the to change the law, because by law, state statute, every county has to have a VSO. Some counties can double up, you know, they get in a memorandum of understanding or agreement, right? And one VSO could take care of 2 counties. They're trying to get put question out there where if a county has less than 10,000 veterans, then they no longer need to have their own VSO. So if that's the case, then Broomfield, you know, they could, if they fall on lean times, then they could say, well, we're gonna cut this position, right? That's fine in theory, but how does that benefit the veteran, right? Because they're saying, oh, the state, you know, the state would step in and, okay, that's fine in theory, like I said, but I think that the bottom line is it's service delivery to the veteran, right? And it would be adversely affected if they pass that. So, but again, without getting overly political, like I said, I can only do what I'm tasked to do. So, Broomfield veterans are my priority. After that, it's anybody else, right? But if I have to delay an appointment, it's going to be for a veteran from another county. I'll push them out so that I could see the veterans in Broomfield. But since I make a lot of phone calls and get back to people, sometimes it's a 5-minute conversation and it's solved. I don't need to set a 1-hour appointment to answer a question, So you can always have a veteran call me, because I'll give them whatever information I can and then refer them to whatever county. And if they tell me that they've had difficulty there, then we'll set an appointment. But I can give a lot of information over the phone that a lot of times can help veterans out. So I do return calls, and I don't answer them too much anymore. I used to try and answer them, but I don't have really time to just answer calls anymore, but I'll return them. Anybody have any questions on all that? I was going to put a PowerPoint up. That would have definitely put you to sleep. So I figured we'd try and keep you awake.
So in relation to your question, so in eastern Colorado, the stats that we have on veterans, we know that there's about 350,000 veterans in eastern Colorado catchment area. So mainly the eastern part of our state, if you kind of look at it that way. And for our VA system, as Tim was saying, if they've touched the VA in some way or form, we have about 116,000. So that's a lot of veterans that have not done anything with the VA. That's you.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah.
Okay. I never put in for compensation for my PTSD.
Okay.
I've been told by people at the VA, not people at the top, that I should.
Mm-hmm.
More than a year ago, I called, I'm in Edinburgh,
Mm-hmm.
called my office, never got a reply. So I'm sitting here asking, what do I need to do?
Call me. I got a card right here I'll give you before we leave. And actually, my PowerPoint presentation too is on, and my contact information is on those sheets there. And there's a lot of good information and phone numbers on those sheets too. That is my PowerPoint presentation. But yeah, if you never got a response back, then call me and we'll sit down and we'll have a good discussion and we'll go from there.
Handout too.
They are.
Your contact.
Oh, man, now you're in trouble.
I'm famous.
And Colette's.
Wow.
Contact. Right here, public information.
That's awesome. Yes, sir.
So, and I'll just say also, when it comes to enrolling in VA healthcare and getting yourself enrolled, I hear this all the time. I'll be at outreach events, and somebody will say they're not enrolled, and we will say you need to get yourself enrolled. And then the first thing they say back is, well, I don't want to take service away from a vet that deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
You're a vet.
You deserve it.
Eligible, You deserve it. So sign up for that. 2, when the Secretary of the VA goes to Congress every couple of years and says, I need all this money, Congress goes, why do you need all this money? Well, I got all these people. Well, how many people is that? They need those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't enroll in VA healthcare, you're hurting the veterans around you, because when we ask for money to fund all the stuff we do, we need you on the roll so that we go to them and say, we've got all these people. So imagine if Eastern Colorado Healthcare could go up to the secretary and say, we are serving 330,000 unique veterans in our catchment area instead of 120,000. Right? Get yourself enrolled in VA healthcare. Like Janelle said, do the enrollment, let the VA decide which eligibility criteria you fit into, but it's important to get yourself enrolled. I don't care if you got the best insurance in the world and you don't want to go to the VA for your healthcare, that's fine. Use your insurance. But get yourself enrolled, get on the books so that you're an active enrolled person with the VA, because it's gonna help everybody.
You have to have a primary care appointment once every 2 years to stay enrolled in primary care. So even if you're using Kaiser or whatever it is, at some point, you never know if you're gonna lose that insurance and you need to rely on the VA as.
It sounds like something the Veterans Museum we could promote, and that maybe have a group sign up.
Yeah, unless you're,
It's just a matter of getting online and doing it.
Right.
unless you're getting prescriptions and they want to see them once a year, right? But the other thing too, I get calls a lot of times, veteran had a health setback. Families calling saying, what can the VA do? Well, is he enrolled in VA healthcare? No, not a lot, right? So getting enrolled in VA healthcare before you have any type of health setback, because it happens, right? And it may be able to offer things that your primary insurance doesn't. So especially if you do have some type of health setback. So it's important to be enrolled and go once a year for that, for that physical, and talk to the primary care doctor and just be active in that system. Again, it helps funding, but it helps you if there is some type of issue that comes up, and then your family's not scrambling to try and enroll you, while this is in process. So, and there's some great benefits to VA healthcare. One of them is urgent care benefit, right? So they have in-network urgent cares. You get 3 free visits a year. After that, they're $30, right, a piece. And so you could go to a VA locator tool. It doesn't matter where you are in the country. You use the VA locator tool, put in your zip code, and it'll show you the closest urgent care, in-network urgent care. You just call them, make sure they're still in VA in-network urgent care. Boom, you go there. I broke my toe and I went to the urgent care. And it was great. They gave me a little walking boot. And then they charged me for it. And then I called the VA and they're like, they weren't supposed to charge you for it. I go, well, I paid for it. They're like, well, we could try and get it out. I go, no, that's all right. But it's a good benefit, right? It's part of that healthcare. There's a lot of good benefits to be said if you're enrolled in VA healthcare. So that's another important, I think, thing for people to do. And if, again, eligibility is eligibility, right? So when you enroll, they might say, you're not eligible, right? If you're not eligible, because not everyone is eligible, it's going to be based on if you have a service-connected disability or if you have certain exposures and served in a certain area. There's also you might have worked in a certain job and you might have used certain chemicals. There's a little box on there that says other exposures. Write those chemicals on there, things you were exposed to, right? And when you submit that application. And then if you're not eligible through that, then it goes to, they'll look at your income, right? And then the other one is catastrophically disabled, right? So there's ways to because of the PACT Act, to get enrolled where you may not have been eligible, you may have been denied in the past, but the new the PACT Act opened up the criteria a little bit due to exposures and things, so it's worth trying again. And you could try every year, put in until they say yes. If they say yes. The what? I'm sorry?
Gulf War syndrome?
As far as PACT Act? So PACT Act, Gulf War syndrome was already covered before PACT Act. It can be a little difficult, as far as service-connected disability, right? Because they list a bunch of things on the website, right? Cardiac issues, fatigue, all those things. And then when you file for them, they say, well, you don't have chronic fatigue syndrome. So you got to have a diagnosis, right? So the cardiac issues, they might come back and deny that, right? So sometimes you have to fight that stuff and keep going, right, for as far as the compensation part of it goes. But you can file for, what they're looking for too is a diagnosis. They think they've nailed it down now to the nerve agents and things that were released, right? So you can file for, and I tell people, you can file for anything if you have a plausible connection to service. So all you have to do is have a plausible connection to service, and that's enough for them to say, okay, you have this disability, here's the plausible connection back to service. We'll give them the exam, that comp and pen exam, and then we'll make an opinion on it, right? But the more evidence you have to go along with that, right? So if the symptoms of the Gulf War, if they manifest early on and you could show that, the earlier that you could show documented complaints of that, the better off you're going to be, right? So documentation and evidence is always key, but yeah, you could file for that for disability.
Well, there's a big change that just happened within the last 2 weeks with Gulf War illness. It just received the ICD-10 code, so now it's actually classified as a medical diagnosis, so you don't have to have the other stuff.
Yeah, so, and I haven't seen any of those claims come back yet, but since it, 8 days ago. So it's something that, and I actually read that and I'm like, well, hopefully, it works as advertised and they use the ICD code. But again, when you're in the VA healthcare system, you make those complaints, right? And that, to me, I get a lot of veterans that don't make the complaints, right? And you want to make those complaints, right? They're like, well, I want to file for this. Have you ever made a complaint about it? Have you ever, do you have any paper on it? No. So there's no paper trail showing that this has been an ongoing issue. A lot of times, what do? Self-care, right? You have a knee issue, what do? Ice, brace, ibuprofen, bourbon in some cases. So, right, exactly. So in those cases, right, you can write a statement to fill in the gaps where there is no medical documentation.
I think we're kind of running a little short on time here,
Yeah.
Tim, and I hope you don't mind, but what I would like to do is encourage everybody to touch base with